Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewatch Room. We didn't have a name for the podcast our last episode, but we finally do. So, this will be our review of the season finale of Stranger Things. And I guess I will start us off with probably what everyone is thinking, which, what the fuck was that? I genuinely have not been this disappointed with a finale of a TV show since season 8, Game of Thrones, which I know there are probably some people out there that think that season 8 of Game of Thrones was worse, but in my opinion, this was even worse than season 8.
Felt worse to me. It definitely felt worse to me. That could be because of the emotional attachment that I have to the show, but this one hurt. This one did not feel good. It felt really bad, especially after, for me, you know this. Most of them, at least who've come from my account, know this. It's been my full-time thing for the most part, covering the show, theorizing, analyzing since June. Actually, since May. That's a long time. And it feels like I'm not a writer. I'm not a bad writer, but I'm not a writer. And it feels like I put more care and effort into writing my theories in ways that made it so that there was as few plot holes or inconsistencies as possible, and in ways that maximized what was previously established. So the story was as compelling as possible. And it feels like they didn't do that, in my opinion. So there's so much to get into. And their interviews are horrible.
Yeah.
So that too.
I will kick us off with saying that Matt and I went and watched the season finale in the theaters on New Year's Eve. We have both since rewatched it to really make sure that we feel even stronger about our opinions on this. Overall, I think that it was a massive waste of time to have a 40, 50-minute epilogue when you cut down really the scene that everyone's been waiting 10 years for them to finally fight the mind flare and have it be 6 minutes of the entire 2-hour-long episode. That right there in and of itself, and I'll just draw another like comparison from Game of Thrones season 8. It was the same thing. You had all of this build up for the Night King, and then it would kind of a side jab, Arya kills him. Feels the exact same. Everyone was really upset about that because they have built up this kind of villain throughout many, many seasons, and everyone's waiting for this final battle to really see what happens. And it really just felt like a smack in the face to the audience to have it be so quick. Where are the Demogorgons? Where are the Demodogs? Where are the Demobats? That is where they come from. Not a single one. And then anyway, I can keep going, but it felt like a smack in the face for how quickly that scene was, and then also how easily they were able to defeat the mind flare and also Vecna. You're telling me that it was that easy after we've seen it was literally, I mean, people have been saying it was harder to defeat Billy.
It was. Actually, I saw that recently. I didn't even think about that in my initial critique. I was comparing it to the season 3 Meat Flare, Mind Flare from the mall.
Mm-hmm.
But it was. Billy was actually challenging to defeat. All of them together could not take him on. And that was when he was simply flayed by the Mind Flare. So why is it that the Mind Flare itself, which is the size of Godzilla, is so easy to defeat, even when you rewatch it? And I know there's been so much pushback. And I wouldn't say so much. The majority, based on what I've seen, agree with these takes. There has been some pushback, though, saying, well, it's a fictional show. That's a terrible way to excuse such poor writing and such lack of stakes. You're telling me, for example, Steve and Dustin, they have the spears paying homage to Eddie, which I liked that. I like that little detail. You're telling me that this big mind flare, they're probably what? If you were to actually zoom the camera out from that moment, they're probably little specks on the screen. And you're telling me it's doing that much damage
Mm-hmm.
to where it's actually causing an immense level of pain. And then Nancy shooting it should not cause it shouldn't feel that at all. I believe when she initially shoots it, it does let out like a screech. And that shouldn't happen because when you shoot at Vecna, nothing happens. He literally walks out aura farming in episode 4 from the gate at the Maxi, and they're all shooting at him, all of the soldiers, and he's just looking around, launching some of them. Why does the mind flare have what would it be, like a hit rate? I don't know if you know. Why is he taking more damage from gunfire than Vecna? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
There's so much about that final fight that doesn't make sense. The Demogorgons, they're there somewhere.
Where?
According to the
Where?
Duffers, they're there somewhere. Like, the fact, I don't even know how you forget that. It's their home planet, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
This is where they're from, clearly established. Sure, we don't see a ton of them in the flashback in season 4 where Henry is roaming around, but you do see them. That's where they're from. And they were in the season previously,
Mm-hmm.
unless you want me to believe, which they didn't say in their explanation, but unless you want me to believe there's only 3 of them, 4 of them in existence, and that's it, and then they're just done, it just doesn't make sense. It is astonishing to me, the level of laziness, because it's not like there was one plot hole or two, a couple of mistakes or inconsistencies. This is almost every bit of the writing prior to the epilogue, and we have issues with the epilogue too. Almost every bit of the writing was incredibly lazy to a degree that I could have never imagined happening. Like going into the finale, I could not have imagined they would handle it that way. It just doesn't make sense. It's inconsistent with the quality of their writing previously. We talked about this. When you rewatch season 4, episode 8 ends in such a way where it feels like you are about to go into this big epic battle where the stakes are high, everything feels tense, and the finale delivered on that feeling. What happened? It doesn't feel like the same show. There's so many problems. It's so bad. The finale, that final fight was so disappointing. There's barely anything good to say about it, at least for me.
I mean, I feel the exact same way. I rewatched it, and in the first watch in the movie theater, I was really almost gaslighting myself into trying to like it because I had been waiting so long for this season, and I had been waiting to finally have all of these characters wrapped up. And I was watching it and was catching things, but would tell myself, it's not that big of a deal. You can kind of look past it, and you cannot look past it. Rewatching that, it is honestly even worse the second time through. For me personally, I think that really from the beginning, there are so many problems with it. I hated the Steve fake out. I thought that was really cheap writing. I thought that was a very cheap way. They know the audience loves Steve. They know that no one wanted Steve to die. Cheap writing, but we've talked about this. Even if you're okay with the fake out, what is going on with the acting? Dustin just watches the one person that he's like, I can't deal with you dying, and is laughing about it when he gets pulled up of, I thought you were a goner there. That is not the reaction that Dustin would have been given or giving compared to what he said literally the episode prior, which is, I cannot lose you.
If you die, I die.
Yeah. And then Taha, I thought you were a goner. So that right there in and of itself is just lazy writing and lazy directing also, because you also need to be making sure that your actors are portraying the emotions that you need them to portray. So I had a problem with that. Kali, major problems with that. We talked about this in the last podcast. I already didn't like that they brought her back. I do owe Kali an apology because I thought she was a traitor, but it was worse. She just didn't have a lot of reason to come back for the plot, unless we can get into the ending with 11. But I didn't like what they did with her character. I thought, again, you're bringing this character back that most people don't really like, and it was kind of already controversial. You bring her back, and you're not even going to really, in my opinion, do anything substantial with her. Um, so I have a problem there. I mean, I feel like I could go on for 5 hours about all of the issues that I have with the season finale, but those are the first two that come to mind, and then um, and that's just really in the first half an hour of the finale.
It is, because you don't even think about it. It feels fast when you're watching it, but when you rewatch it, especially if you open the finale at home, since I saw it both times in theaters, so it's not like I can see what the runtime is at. I did look at it. I didn't rewatch it again a third time because I just can't. But I did pull it up to see what the runtime was at during different moments, and it is really the first 30 minutes is, I think the fight's over after like 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
which is crazy. But everything you said, I agree with. Kali, it was really disappointing because I thought if you're going to bring a character back that's already controversial, mainly because of her episode, not really just because of the character herself, because of how poorly received the episode was, I would assume there's something you're doing there, something interesting, some sort of big impact she's going to have on Eleven's story. In fact, this is one of the problems they had. I've had some feedback from people who don't agree, which again is not the majority, saying I just had too high of expectations. The Duffers themselves set these expectations in the interviews. Trust me, I've watched every interview, paid attention to all of the marketing campaign. They said that Kali was going to play a key role in Eleven's character development and character arc. That didn't happen. She maybe played a role as a plot device in the potential fate of 11, but that's really it. And Third Duffer on TikTok pointed this out. Something I didn't include in my initial video, and I don't think we talked about, is how awful the messaging is around Eleven's fate if she did, in fact, die. If she did, which I'm still going 50-50 on because the Duffers themselves said it's up for interpretation. And also, when you do break it down, both options come with a laundry list of plot holes. At first, I've had some people, I've not towards me, I've just read comments of people saying that only one option has plot holes. They both do.
Yeah.
Neither of them make sense. So, that aside, and we will talk about that, the messaging around this child, because I think she's supposed to canonically be 16,
Yeah.
maybe 17.
Maybe.
So, this child she's grown up her whole life being abused, being locked away in a lab until she was 11, maybe 12. And you pluck her out of that scenario because she escapes. She immediately she has a boyfriend essentially before she even knows how to fully speak, before she even knows what her full name is, her actual name being Jane, not 11. And then her whole arc throughout the series, she's starting to come into her own a little bit. She does have an independence moment arc with Max in season 3. And by the end of season 5, she has to off herself. That's not great message. That's pretty bad messaging. I'm not saying that they were prioritizing the messaging there. I don't think they thought that through. I could elaborate further. I think the point comes across. That's pretty bad messaging. It's a weird choice for it to be, because Gayton came out in an interview today, actually, at the time of filming this. And he said that the reason she did it was so that her friends could live a normal life. So it was less actually for her. That was her final rationale, was so her friends could live a normal life. So you're telling me the character who has been abused forever, and then ever since escaping has gone through it by being faced with the monsters of the Upside Down and really just having to evade the military and the, I don't know, CIA in season 2. I don't know what you would want to call them, the agents from Hawkins' lab. So you're telling me that that character really doesn't ever get to find her own happiness, because instead it's no, I'm a plot device, because the Duffers also said that she is supposed to be symbolic for the magic of childhood, which makes her, they said that, I know. Isn't that bad? They just said that in an
That's
interview.
so
They
bad.
need to stop talking in interviews, but they just said that. So that you essentially turned 11 into this plot device, not really her own actual person. And in the end, she has to take her own life if that's what happened, or she has to be alone and go to some small village in Iceland where, I'm not saying she couldn't find happiness there, but I mean, it's, there's so many issues around that. And then, of course, the plot holes.
I mean, I feel like we should just jump into how they ended everything with 11, because I agree that no matter how you interpret the ending, whether you think that she did live or whether you think that she did die, either way, there's plot holes. I will go and start with the, if you're in the camp that she lived, Holly was in the building that was the first building to blow up when they blew up the Upside Down.
Mhm.
So, how could she possibly, her, if she was the one casting 11, how would that be possible? Because I'm sorry, she would be dead. She would have been dead and 11 wouldn't have been there. That in and of itself, to me, massive plot hole. So I don't I don't think you can get around that and try and explain. And even if you remove that, she got shot and was bleeding out 4 hours. The whole gang went and fought the mind flare while she's bleeding out. Do we really think that she would have survived that long? Probably not. Um, and then again, she was in the same building that they blew up. That's the first building that blew up when they detonated the bomb. So you, that to me right there, you're not going to convince me. I've seen other people say, well, her nose wasn't bleeding, so how was Elle using her powers? It's just plot holes. They don't actually know what they were trying to do with it. Or I think they do. I shouldn't say that. I think they knew what they wanted to do. It was executed incredibly poorly, considering how many plot holes you have for each side of the argument, whether you think that she lived and made it to Iceland or whether you think that she died. Neither of them make any sense when you think about the plot holes. And if you think that she lived, okay, actually, I'm going to switch to if you think that she died, because I also think that there is that is a plot hole to not have her nose bleeding using her powers, bringing Mike into her mind. That is a plot hole. Being able to bring Mike into her mind to begin with is a gigantic plot hole. So it's honestly too many to count, and that's just for the ending of 11's character. And maybe it sounds, I hope she's dead, which probably sounds bad, but I only hope that she's dead so that at least we got one character to actually die that wasn't Kali. And I don't disagree with you that it is cruel to have her die, and it honestly, she's had this traumatizing life She's been used. It's a horrible message to then say she's going to sacrifice herself to save her friends. I agree fully. I hope that she's dead just so they didn't completely lie to us when they said that there were going to be these really traumatic scenes and traumatic deaths. But I mean, I don't like what they did. I don't like that they left it open for interpretation. To me, it feels like a cop out because they're too afraid to kill a character. So we're going to quote unquote kill a character in a way that maybe we did, maybe we didn't, because we can't commit to anything. That is how it feels to me. And I hate that they did that.
I agree. I'm not a fan of the indecision because it doesn't seem like a good example for me is the end of Inception.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Nolan never clearly establishes whether or not it's a dream, he's still in the dream, or it's reality. Because you never quite see, what's it called? The thing that he spins. Why am I thinking? I'm blanking on the name. The little spinner. Whatever it's called. You guys know what I'm talking about. It starts to wobble, screen cuts to black. And you never find out if Cobb is in a dream or a reality. But it kind of doesn't matter because he's with his kids and he feels happiness regardless. That works. In that specific movie, it works. It's clever. It doesn't feel like a cop-out.
Mm-hmm.
It feels far more intentional. With this, it feels like a cop-out, like you're saying. It doesn't feel intentional at all. It feels like indecision. It feels like they didn't want to go with one path. Like you said, it feels like they didn't want to kill a character because they literally won't do that for some reason. And besides with Kali, who is, again, out of everyone, you couldn't even take out Ted Wheeler. How is Ted not Bones? Murray's such an easy character. Even though people like him, Mr. Clark is an easy character.
Yeah.
Though these are easy characters that are in this, in volume 2 and in the finale, that nothing happens with. You don't even take out Dr. K.
Yeah.
The villainous military leader. What happens to her? Don't know, but you don't even take her out. They couldn't commit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that if they did, it would have made it better because there was just so many plot holes and inconsistencies. But with what you were saying regarding 11, I'm bothered by it because of that. I'm also just bothered that, again, with the Nolan example, there aren't plot holes either way, right?
Mm-hmm. With
this one, there are. You listed the fact that Kali was bleeding out, and that is one, if she is to survive. Kali is also, if you rewatch it, she is near where Jonathan and Nancy were when everything was melting, which is right below the exotic matter. If you rewatch the scene when they first detonate the bomb, the exotic, besides the fact that a bomb gets detonated, the exotic matter rapidly expands quickly before shrinking and then shooting out an energy burst. The exotic matter rapidly expanding would have taken Kali's life if the bomb already didn't. And also, she's pretty far away from where 11 is. Since when can her powers reach that far?
They can't.
Yep.
They have addressed the fact or shown us that she's not able to cast from that far away.
Right. So that's another plot hole. And then you also have I wouldn't really call it a plot hole. I would call it a contrivance a plot contrivance. When did they have enough time to establish this plan? Because Hopper wasn't gone that long when he went to go get bandages. So when would they have had enough time? That's a contrivance. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of those in the finale and in volume 2 and really the whole season now. There was things I thought would be explained or wrapped up that weren't. So you have that element of it. And even if you try to write all of those off, right? So somehow Kali's powers reach, somehow she didn't die with the bomb or the exotic matter. How did 11 initially, because she's there, when she gets off of the truck? I know that they show that Kali eventually casts obviously in Mike's theory, she makes 11 invisible, but right away, no one in the military saw her just randomly disappear if that happened. And also, when 11 pulls Mike into the void, she would have had to have been far enough away to do that from the kryptonite. So that the timeline wise, in the timing of that scene, that would not have been possible. But even if you try to believe that, even if you try to go as far as believing all of that, why did the military sit there? And this applies for both, by the way. This applies for both scenarios. Why did the military sit there and, whether it's an illusion or not, it's a 3-minute scene with her and Mike in the void. So you're telling me that 11 was just stanced up for 3 minutes and everyone was just screaming, no, 11, no, for 3 minutes. And not a single member of the military, Dr. K, who has been viciously hunting 11, didn't walk up there
and
to
try and grab
herself.
her. Literally,
That makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
I think that would fit the definition of a plot contrivance more than would be a plot hole. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
And it's poor writing.
The other thing that I clocked immediately when we went and saw it in theaters, I don't know if you saw this, but I can't remember which character he's holding, but one of the military men is holding maybe Dustin. And there's a shot of him when 11 dies. Hypothetically dies, we don't really know. And he's has tears in his eyes. Did you notice this? Because I clocked it immediately and I thought it was so bad. Why would he have any emotion towards 11 dying?
Dustin or
no, the military
man?
Yes, the military man.
I did not notice that. I didn't notice that.
I'm telling you, I'm going to have to show you the scene. It's so bad. It's so bad. He's tearing up. Why is he upset? You're working for the bad guy. And the person that you're trying to capture is dying and you're going to be tearing up. It makes no sense. And I'm going to have to show it to you now because it's so bad. It's just another thing to add to how much I genuinely hated the ending of that scene.
Yeah, there's a lot. I didn't notice that. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Another element that I hated, I'm going to touch on it now briefly, is the fact that obviously I was in the camp of Byler being Endgame. It's not that it didn't happen, although there is a lot of problems that come with that, which we will talk about either later or at some point in some episode we will discuss it. I will be talking about it on my account as well. Is Mike and 11, their conversation, the final conversation, there's a lot, by the way. There's things that maybe you haven't noticed. But first of all, their relationship has been in shambles. They had no shared screen time at all in Volume 1 except for that initial conversation on the rooftop, which was not a conversation that would have made me think they're in a good spot in their relationship. First of all, she seemed remarkably insecure in that conversation. So they have no other screen time at all throughout this entire season leading up to when they have a brief reunion and then they have this scene in the truck where it's not super, it doesn't strike me as, oh, this is an endgame couple. To go from season 4 where they had a huge rift in their relationship, and also season 3, most of season 3, they had a big rift as well, to 11 saying, you're the only one who, something along the lines of, you're the only one who really understands me, which I'll get into that too. And to have this scene of romance come out of nowhere. It's not like we're coming off the end of season 2 and then we get a scene like this. It would make sense at that point in the story. It doesn't make sense. Their relationship has been deteriorating. The other thing is, Millie Bobby Brown said in interviews that the character of Mike Wheeler does not understand 11. She said that in interviews. It's been clipped out a million times. Why is it that the writing is directly contradicting what she said? Because what she said made sense. It checks. And I've had people try to argue this. They're trying to parallel how Mike said, I love you in a speech at the end of season 4 when she's in the tub and she can't respond because she's in the tub, so she can't speak. Mike doesn't say, I love you back. And the whole reason they had a rift in season 4 was literally
Because of
because
that.
because
Yeah.
of that. You're telling me in her final moments, he can't say it. She says it. He can't say it back. Also, there's other funny little details. Spencer pointed this out. If you pause when he's holding her,
Mm-hmm.
have you
Oh,
seen that?
yes, I've seen this. It's
It's like this. It's like this. It's not even, it's not an actual, it's so awkward. It's so strange.
so awkward.
Why do you direct him that way? Because that is a direction
Yeah.
choice. Why is he directed that way? Why did you write it so he doesn't say, I love you back, if he understands her better than anyone? Also, why is it that when you have the line where I think she says, you see the real me, because there's the flashbacks happening, when that specific line is said, they flash to the image of Eleven in costume in season 1 when she's dressing in Nancy's clothes with the wig on, which is the least real her that she's been in the show. What? It doesn't, none of it makes sense at all. And that scene was just terrible.
It was
And
really
it was bad.
It was really
And
bad.
it feels insulting because, again, if you had built up, like if season 5 kicked off and it was clear they had chemistry, the relationship was in a good, healthy spot, I would feel differently. But that's not what we saw. So it just feels so out of left field.
Yeah. No, I mean, that scene to me was, because I never felt like I was particularly on one side of the Byler or the Maleven. I saw both points. If I was a Maleven, I would still be pissed because how can you, like you're saying, how can you write it for Mike to still not say, I love you back in her final moments?
It's crazy.
That to me is genuinely insane because that was a really big plot point that between the two characters and between their relationship that Mike would say from Mike on all of the letters. So you're going to write it where he still doesn't say I love you back to 11 is insane. The acting, and I think the problem is none of the actors are bad actors, which is how you know it's bad writing and bad direction. With Finn, it was so awkward. It was probably the worst I've ever seen him acting wise. And you're going to tell me that him in season 1 as a little kid is a better actor and has more chemistry with 11 than now. And I have other things to say about the acting between some other characters, but it felt so awkward. And it just, that's really all they're going to give the audience. And I, yeah, I mean, I really hated that scene. I think we can talk a little bit about Byler too, because I genuinely think that the scene on the tower where the friends, no, best friends, disrespectful. I genuinely find that it's not funny, it's disrespectful, and it makes it very clear that they've known about it. They've known that there are all of these people that see all of the connections between Mike and Mo's characters and can see that they might have a romantic relationship. The other problem that I have with it is that is the scene that Noah Schnapp had to fight the Duffers to be in the finale because he said there was no resolution between these two characters. That in and of itself is genuinely insane.
It's cruel.
It's cruel. That's really, you weren't even gonna have the two characters talk about it. The coming out scene was gonna be the resolution. That is so insane to me that that is what their plan was. And then all we got was kind of honestly a jab at fans. And I understand if people are wrong and people are reading into things and whatever, but you're honestly just making fun of your fan base at that point, and that seems really disrespectful to the thousands of people that watch this in hopes of Byler. And to kind of just really not do anything with it. The painting wasn't addressed. They said the painting would be addressed. It's not addressed. And then again, it feels like a slap in the face. You have the final scene with Mike in his room, and the painting's there. So they clearly didn't completely forget about it. It was just another way that I feel like it was a slap in the face to a large audience that really cared about these two characters. And again, even if you're not going to have Mike and Will happen, and as I said, I'm not a big Byler stan. If you're not going to have that happen, and you recognize that there was clearly all of this, and also total side, why would you even do that to begin with? Because the writing, people aren't delusional. The writing was there, making you question what was going on between these two characters. And then the best they're going to give is a jab. If you're not going to do it, that's fine. But at least give the audience some sort of true resolution between the two characters. Have Mike and Will actually have a conversation about it that isn't just I should have known and I should have been there for you. Mike, you did know because you literally said it's not my fault that you don't like girls. In what was that, season 2?
3.
3?
In the rain fight.
Yeah.
Which also, I'll get into that in a separate segment.
But so you're going to now also try and convince me that Mike didn't actually know that Will was gay the whole time. It just, yeah. I mean, if I was a Byler or a 11, I'd be pissed either way, because either way, neither relationship was wrapped up in any sort of satisfying way for the audience.
I agree. I feel like they don't know how to write relationships at
No.
all. And with that scene, I agree. It would, I mean, because we saw it together. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that they did that.
Yeah.
And also, Noah didn't ask them to write that specific line or that specific scene. He just asked for there needs to be resolution. The fact that he asked that, he went out of his way. He also said he was afraid. He said he was scared to ask them. He went out of his way, and that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe he said that when he had follow-up notes, they said essentially like, "Shut up, Noah. Like that's enough." And that's crazy because obviously it is so obvious that was like flipping the bird to the audience, to the Byler fans.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to also, they came out in interviews recently. One of the other things they said was Byler was never in the cards, ever. It was never something they even considered. And the thing is, I think I might have mentioned it in the previous episode. So of all of the evidence I found when I did the analysis series, there's some evidence that, as I say in those videos with regards to these specific pieces of evidence, this could be a piece of the puzzle if Byler happens, but it could also be other things. But there's others where it has no other meaning. And now that the show is over, I can say that with confidence. There are other things that had no bearing on the plot. Even the rain fight scene that you're referencing, now that just makes Mike look homophobic.
Yeah.
It doesn't. There's a lot of different ways that I analyzed it. One of them was the 11 breakup takes place right before that. Those two scenes are shot very similar. They look the same, except The Malevolent scene is color graded very differently, and Mike's reactions are the main principal difference. The whole vibe of the scene, one of them is a devastating scene. It's sad. It feels like what you would imagine an actual breakup to feel like. The Malevolent breakup scene, Mike just says that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
He does that facial expression that he does a couple times in the show. And then is going and eating chips and burping and talking about how annoying it is to understand girls.
Yeah.
That's so different from how he handles Will. All of that meant nothing. It meant nothing because it didn't help to develop Will's self-acceptance. It was about Mike. It was focused on Mike. All of the different parallels where they specifically only paralleled Mike and Will's dynamic to Mike and Eleven's. No one else in the show. That's something that exclusively happens there. What purpose did that serve in the end? It didn't. It had no purpose. I've thought about it. Trust me, I've really thought about it. And so just for them to come out in interviews and say that, then it's either one of two things. Either you're lying and there was a studio interference, or you are just awful people, straight up, who queer baited your audience, and you know you did because millions of people now believe you did.
Mm-hmm.
Even people who weren't bilers, not just you. I've seen there was a girl who made a really viral, funny skit video that it did make me laugh. It was pretty good. It was pretty good comedic timing. It was about that.
Mm-hmm.
It had 500,000 likes, so at least a few million views, and it's just cruel. And then again, yes, that scene is cruel writing. The painting is ridiculous. It's on his wall, and so that implies. You said it's on his wall. I know that, but it implies that either Mike and Will did talk about it off screen, or Mike has just gone on believing that what Will said about the painting being commissioned by Eleven and being reflective of Eleven's feelings for Mike, he believes that's true, and the lie is never resolved. You also have the fact that Nancy and Jonathan are given space, ample space and time in the runtime to address the lies they've been telling each other and address the conflict they've been experiencing. Nancy and Jonathan they are main characters, but they are not the main characters. I would argue Mike, Will, and Eleven are the big three.
Mm-hmm.
They are the Thor, Tony, and Captain America, Tony Stark, of Stranger Things. So you're going to tell me that they're not going to resolve that conflict. That doesn't make sense. You give some of your other main characters who aren't really, really main characters, you're going to give them, 20 minutes of runtime? It was a long scene.
It was a long
It was a
scene.
really long scene to resolve that. That was a smaller conflict than the Mike and Will conflicts, plural.
Yes.
I couldn't believe I have so many opinions. I'll be talking about it for hours. So
I mean, like I said, I feel like I could talk about this for many, many hours because there's genuinely so many things that I didn't like about this episode and the entirety of the season. Honestly, we talked a little bit. You asked me in the last episode of our podcast, if they knock everything out of the park, would it be enough to kind of make up for some of the issues in season 5? And I said, for the most part, kind of. And I got punched in the face in that movie theater. It was honestly worse than I thought it was going to be. I expected to not like all of it. It's hard to find a TV series that you truly love and you love every single second of the finale. It's hard. Some people are going to be let down with certain things that happen. That's natural. But when you have, I think, the vast majority of your audience hate what you did something wrong. And it's not a hot take, it is just a fact. And I think that, again, removing the Byler, the Malevolent, there are just so many issues with the writing, the entire season, but especially in the season finale. So many plot holes. I mean, the amount of plot holes is insane. We also don't ever get answers to questions that we've been waiting to get answers.
that they said we would get answers for also
Yes.
in interviews, which again, setting expectations and then not meeting them.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, one of those was we still don't know why Will. We never got that answered. We also didn't get something that I really wanted to be answered was about the door. Because there's all these theories, and even the Duffer Brothers in an interview say that the Demogorgons do not have
Telekinetic.
telekinetic abilities. They say that. So you're kind of led to believe that it might be 11. And we also never really get any sort of clarification on how 11 recognizes Will in the picture from season 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all assuming that maybe 11 was the reason that the door opened
Mm-hmm.
or was unlocked. We don't get that answer anywhere. And I was really looking forward to, because I thought that that was going to be a really cool plot point that they finally wrap up, and there was going to be some big, climax to this, and there was just nothing. And you still don't know. I still don't know anything more about, honestly, the entire world and some of the questions that you have about Stranger Things as I did in season 4 and season 3. They just didn't. I said in the last podcast that one of my concerns was that they don't have enough time to wrap up every single character. And not only did they not wrap up every single character, they didn't even wrap up the important plot lines that the show was built on. And that to me is bad writing and rushed. I just feel like it was rushed.
It was. And to break that down bit by bit, I know people will respond saying, well, obviously it was Vecna. It could have been Vecna, not
Yeah.
11. But guess what? The Duffers also said in interviews, we didn't have, when they were asked about that, they said, well, we didn't have the idea for Vecna yet. So that rules that out, really, unless you are retconning.
Mm-hmm.
And they did address the Demogorgon, and then they left it open-ended and implied it's a question that might be answered. And then here we are.
Yeah.
There's why November 6th?
Yep.
Actually, I forgot about this too. The day before the finale released, they also released an image of young Henry Creel's badge or his patch, his Boy Scout patch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it says 1106 something on it.
Mm-hmm.
What did that mean?
Yeah.
Because they also built that up in interviews. Again, stop talking in interviews if you're not going to fulfill these promises. They built that up to be something important. The show itself built that up to be important. Lucas says in volume 1, don't you guys remember what's in 2 days?
Mm-hmm.
They imply it's going to be a big deal. You literally open with Will being taken and finally being captured by Vecna and having the particles put in him. The only tiny explanation at all that they give for why Vecna took Will was when he captures him in episode 4, because you are weak and you broke so easily. And it's like, that's not the actual reason, right? Because then why did he just leave? He knew that would he would be triggering his abilities.
Mm-hmm.
He's had experience with that before. He clearly was attempting to do that. He left him alive, walked away. You're telling me there was no reason? There was no reason for you to trigger his connection to the hive mind. You knew that he was connected. You then captured him again, made him your spy. It's implied there's more to that than just sending Demodogs to find Max in the hospital, which he should also already know she's there. Because
Oh, that's so funny.
There's so many things that don't make sense. They built this up to be super important, is my point. And they also literally had Will come out in episode 7 specifically so that he could play a role in the final fight. You assume, based on the writing, you assume based on all of the writing, based on Vecna leaving him alive, based on Vecna allowing 11 to come free him, because there was a parallel there between season 2 and, was it season 2? Yeah, no, season 1, when Vecna allows them to come get Will. when he's hooked up to the tube,
Mm-hmm.
he allows that to happen. He's there. We see that in the first 5 minutes of season 5. There is an assumption being built up that Will is an important key in this final confrontation in the Mind Flayer and Vecna's ultimate plan. No,
Yeah.
but actually, we just gave him powers and a connection to the hive mind, created him as a threat. We, as in Vecna and the Mind Flayer, but actually, he was just kind of like a test subject, and it's just such bad writing. It's awful writing. It's so inconsistent.
And that brings up my next major qualm. They even say, I think it was also in, I want to say season 2, maybe 3, you'll know, when they say that they can't close the gate because it'll kill Will.
It's season 2. I made a video about it. It was a huge plot point. It took up about 20 to 30 minutes of the finale.
Yeah, because of his connection to the hive mind. Mm-hmm. So we've known this throughout the entire series. Mm-hmm. And even in the finale, when Henry's in the cave and gets shot in the hand, Will feels it. Will feels the entire experience that Henry Creel is going through when he's in the cave. Somehow, all of that goes out the window when they actually start to fight Vecna. How is Will alive? He should not be alive. That is a plot hole. That is a major plot hole. Or at least, how did he not feel Vecna getting beheaded and dying? He's just chilling. But no, he can feel Henry getting shot in the hand in his memory, but can't feel anything else. Or any of the other times that I'm trying to think, maybe it was a Demodog that was set on fire.
Demogorgon, yes.
Yes. Demogorgon that was set on fire. And he's like screaming
on
in
the
pain.
ground.
Yeah.
And he's like flailing.
Yeah.
It's good acting. It's good physical acting.
Yeah.
But yes.
But Vecna dying, the Mind Flayer dying, Will's chilling. That to me makes it just is a massive plot hole. Mm-hmm. And just shows me how lazy the writing was, and honestly how it comes across of like how little they just care about the ending of this series.
And about Will.
And also, about Will.
Because they kind of disregarded him in the finale. And also their interview quote is horrible. It's one of their worst. They have a lot of bad ones, but...
Is it the one where they said if there was a season 6, we'd be writing you out?
No, they addressed this plot hole.
Oh, they did?
They were asked about it, but they didn't fill it. Because you can't. It's an inexplicable plot hole. There is no explaining it away. And also, even if you try to explain it in interviews, because some people are also trying to say, I don't think you know the definition of a plot hole. Yes, I do. Explaining it in an interview doesn't make it not a plot hole. Mm-hmm. If you don't explain it or address it in the show, that is when it becomes a plot hole.
Yeah.
Trust me, I fact-checked the definitions before I started making videos about it. It's a plot hole, and in their interview when they were asked, I think it was the Variety or the Collider interview, one of the two, when they were asked about it, their explanation was, well, Will was feeling the pain off screen, but basically, like, trust us, it was there. And then, but ultimately, we just wanted to focus on the final fight with our heroes. So is Will not one of your heroes?
Yeah.
Because that's the implication in that statement. And it just, again, it's terrible writing. It doesn't make sense. When the Mind Flayer is being lit on fire by flamethrowers, by Mike's flare gun, combined with, I think it was probably oil in the water, or water balloons that Lucas was throwing. The Mind Flayer is the hub, the central hub of the hive mind. So theoretically, it stands to reason that any damage inflicted on the Mind Flayer would cause the greatest degree of damage to the rest of the hive mind, because it's the heart. It's the center of it. And yes, when the Demogorgons are lit on fire in episode 4, you get Will screaming, and again, the Squidward from SpongeBob when he's like doing that dance, mm-hmm. He's like flailing about on the ground screaming because he feels like he's being lit on fire. The same thing happens in season 2 when I think it's when the soldiers, they go through the tunnels, which we now know Will built, and they light them on fire
Mhm.
after rescuing Hopper. And he is in so much pain that I believe he gets knocked unconscious, or he's on the ground almost seizing,
Mhm.
because that is the degree to which it hurts him. And he feels like he's on fire. I think he says, it feels like I'm burning everywhere. What do you just forgot about it, and you decided, nah, we don't need to address it. It would have been, I addressed it first of all in some of my theories. If I can address it, you can address it. You're the writers of the show. It's your story. It's not mine. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm not the only one who did. A lot of people did. It would have made it more compelling. Imagine how interesting it would have been if not only did they have to fight the Mind Flayer and fight Vecna, but simultaneously figure out how to prevent Will from dying, severing the connection between him and the hive mind before dealing the final blow. That
Yeah.
would have been interesting. There would have been
It would have
stakes.
been
Even
great.
if they figured it out and Will lived, that would have made me feel tension. I didn't
Mhm.
feel tension at all. The
No.
second Nancy shot that thing and it was, screeching,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, there's no way.
Yeah.
Everyone's safe.
And again, they would have had time to do that if they would have just, I don't know, shortened the epilogue. We didn't need the epilogue to be what it was. I'm sorry, but that was just such an unnecessary use of time. Um, I have a really big problem with that. I also think the mind flare didn't look great. Expect, I think that the mind flare in like the shadow version of the mind flare looks so scary throughout all of the seasons. And then this is the physical form that we get. And honestly, it takes 6 minutes to defeat. That's I don't understand how you can like it. I, that is just so poorly done for you to just think that okay, it's, 6 minutes is fine. Um so I there's so many issues that I have with it, and all of it comes down to it just wasn't well thought out. It wasn't well written. They either forgot about plot lines that they had or didn't care enough to actually close them in a way that would have done any sort of resolution to whatever plot line it might be, whatever character it might be. It was just lazy. And I I mean I just every I've watched it twice, and the second time around I found even more issues with it.
So many.
So many. I want you to say one nice thing about the season finale.
I hope Jamie Campbell Bower's pillows are always the correct, perfect temperature. I hope when he buys a beverage, the straw always reaches the very bottom so he can get every last sip. I hope that he doesn't get his sleeves wet on accident when he washes his hands. His performance is incredible. His performance, genuinely, not just in shows, in movies too, from the past 2 years, one of the best that I've seen. And I've seen a lot of movies and shows. It's my job. He was remarkable. The range was insane. The range was crazy. When he was in the cave, even though I really hated how they did not explore that further, even the parallels between him and Will were so loosely barely.
Yeah.
That was interesting. That's something they could have dove into, and they didn't. It's like you see the kid, right? The kid's afraid, gets shot in the hand, and his performance, Jamie's, he seemed like a terrified kid in his eyes, his facial expressions. But then also the scene when he first gets in the cave, he seems like a demonic entity. The way he's like, the angle, he looks all
Mhm.
pale. It's so good though. It's all from him. It's all his performance. Mr. Whatsit crushes it. His quick switch from friendly Mr. Whatsit to when 11 attacks him to being scary. The way he's like Eleven's trying to intimidate him, and he says like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's when he points to her head. It's great. His range, and that's without even mentioning him as Vecna. He is amazing. That's one positive thing because it is in the finale that I can
Mm-hmm.
give the finale. Even though I don't love the clunky dialogue, I made a video about this today, or last night. I posted it today. 2 scenes. The rooftop scene. Now, I have a lot of issues with the rooftop scene and the epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I like it, after seeing it the second time especially, is because you can relate to this since we are pretty much the same age, but that's a scene that embodies something I myself have gone through more than once. The feeling of reuniting with, let's say, high school friends, and it's been a while, and they they don't know me now, and I've changed a lot as a person, as most people do in their 20s. But they know a version of me that nobody else will ever truly know. You can hear about it from me, but you'll never actually know. They were with me in a chapter of life that nobody else can truly understand. And whenever we get together, it's very rare, but we always talk about, you know, we need to make plans to see each other more often. And then a lot of the times that doesn't happen. That scene to me was very reflective of that. And it made me feel a sense of nostalgia, but also melancholy that it's hard to put into words, but I think people listening may understand. Like you know it when you felt it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that scene for that reason. It is a positive for me. However, there are issues.
Yeah.
And the issues would be the clunky dialogue because the dialogue is clunky, but Maya Hawke's performance, especially,
Mm-hmm.
I think that she was definitely, that wasn't acting. That didn't
Mm-hmm.
seem like acting to me. That seemed like genuine. She was genuinely breaking down, crying. Same with Joe. His
Mm-hmm.
his his initial reaction where he kind of looks away with tears in his eyes. It seemed authentic and real, and I really appreciated that about it. Again, clunky dialogue is one problem. One of the other issues I had with it, not to get into issues again, is just that Robin and Vicky breaking up
Yeah.
because I think she has a line where she says here they're saying here's to something and she says and to getting rid of I think overbearing partners, something like that, where I'm like, you broke them up, you broke the only canon queer couple
Mm-hmm.
off screen. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then also I think it's a little weird that it seems like, and I guess this applies more even with Mike, it kind of seems like even down to their styling, a lot of them became what they wouldn't have wanted to become, like their parents.
Yeah.
Like Nancy's like a secretary,
Mm-hmm.
and her
Her
hairstyle and
hairstyle looks
everything
like Karen.
looks like Karen.
Yeah.
And Nancy previously said that essentially that's her worst fear.
Yeah.
A little weird, but I still like the scene overall. And the other one is Dustin's speech. Clunky dialogue, a little too long, but I do like the homage to Eddie. I
Mm-hmm.
like that he did exactly what Eddie said he wanted to do on his graduation day. And he fulfilled that dream that Eddie had. And I like that. But
Yeah.
that's really, I think that
I mean,
might be it.
that I feel like is more than me. So,
What are yours?
I mean, I have the same,
Okay.
I think, same ones. Jamie Campbell Bower's acting, phenomenal.
So good.
I mean, he's the only, like, he is the only reason that it wasn't completely horrible. He definitely in the cave scene. I mean, it is phenomenal. He does so much just with his facial expressions, and especially when I felt like throughout the season a lot of the other actors weren't all that great, he was the highlight for me.
Hmm.
Absolutely phenomenal performance. So that's really my number one highlight for sure. I I mean that's I think that's kind of it. I don't disagree with the rooftop scene, and I don't necessarily disagree with Dustin's speech, but did I like them that much, not really. Like, at that point, maybe in my viewing experience, I had already just been tapped out from enjoying it, but I didn't really if I were to pick any of them, I would probably pick Dustin's speech because I do like that it was an homage to Eddie's character and was exactly what Eddie said that he would do at graduation. I think that's cool, especially because it at least wraps up somewhat of the plot line of Dustin being so upset about Eddie's death throughout this season. So I did like that. Um, the rooftop scene, it didn't really make me feel that much. It was just kind of, in my opinion, it should have been more emotional, and it didn't really feel that emotional, and it should have felt more like they were almost trauma bonded by this experience, and it just didn't do all that much for me. I get your point though about that. It's kind of like
It's fair.
it's kind of like high school and getting to see and I agree. I just wish again that they would have done something more emotional with the characters. It felt really dry and really stale to me. I do think the Vicky just not being addressed is weird.
Crazy.
Um I think in general I didn't like the epilogue at all. I'll say one thing that I did like, which you might disagree with. I actually did like the Joyce and Hopper engagement scene. I know.
I did
I
not like that
I know.
scene. Not because I don't want them to get engaged. I just didn't like the execution. The idea,
Fair.
fine. When they had all that buildup about Enzo's in season 4, that's not how I imagined it going, and maybe that's on me. I just thought I just didn't love the execution of the scene. I don't know. It could also be the case though, right? That's not something I can relate to.
Yeah.
And so I didn't appreciate the rooftop scene or Dustin's speech as much the first time. I
Yeah.
appreciated them more the second time, which is when I already knew everything was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I appreciated those more. Now, on the rooftop scene quickly, I do agree about it feeling dry. I genuinely think the reason it got to me the most was the very last bit of it again, where Maya Hawke starts crying,
Mm-hmm.
Joe starts crying, and they talk about what does he say? He says something about that's when he brings up the line about let's
Meet up
meet up once a month.
once a month.
It's
They'll
that part.
mm-hmm.
Everything that came before didn't hit the same. I agree. It
Yeah.
was dry. But I think with the Enzo scene, it's not awful. I didn't feel anything. I didn't care. I don't care about Joyce and Hopper anymore because I know it's just not interesting.
Yeah.
You burned me before that scene. And so to me, it wasn't very interesting. Also, if I'm not mistaken, now I know Mike is just theorizing about the future, and this is a good
Mm-hmm.
segue into I want to ask you about what you thought about the last scene as a
Mm-hmm.
whole, the final scene of the show. Hopper talks about Montauk, which I believe
It's in New York.
it's in New York,
Yeah.
which is also the show was originally going to be titled Montauk. Um, and he makes he says something about how they're going to be closer to the kids. Makes a statement about that.
Mm-hmm.
But in Mike's theoretical future reality that he's giving to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
Will is going to school in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So are you closer to Jonathan at NYU and
Yeah.
not Will? Because Will is not going to New York. So that's a weird, it's a nitpick.
That's
I
true.
know, I'm nitpicking, but it's still, I just didn't like that scene that much. It just didn't hit for me, but I'm
Fair.
curious. I'm glad that you found something you liked. No, I am. What did you think about the ending scene? I have mixed opinions on it, largely because of what came before, and I'll get into that. There are things I liked about that scene too, I guess. I did. I want to hear your thoughts first. I want to hear your thoughts.
Specifically with the kids playing D&D in the basement.
From the point where you get the close-up shot on the sprinkler perfectly paralleling the first episode of season 1 all the way until the end.
I mean, I think we talked a little bit about this, that the Duffers have confirmed that they are going to do a live action spin-off series,
Mhm.
right? That is what that felt like to me.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
The spin-off series is now been confirmed to be about The Rock.
What do you mean?
The Rock that is in the briefcase, the stone.
That's what it's going to be about?
It's going to be exploring the mythology and lore of that, where it comes from, which I'm a little confused on because they also said in the same sentence, it won't be about the Mind Flayer or related to the Mind Flayer, even though that's what connected Henry to the Mind Flayer. That's what it's about. New town, new characters, new mythology, all around that rock, circulating around that rock.
Okay.
Whatever that was. So I was wrong because I also thought the same thing.
Good to know.
When I was watching it, we talked about it after. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is setting up the spinoff. That's why. That's why Holly had so much screen time.
Yeah.
She's not involved. According to them. I don't fully believe she won't be in some other spinoff.
Yeah.
You know,
right,
but
right.
the Stranger Things cinematic universe, but
Yeah. I mean, we briefly talked about this. I've seen a lot of people's theories of the ending, and we said it was so bad, but some people's theories are making how bad it is in a way that tries to make it look good. And I think it's Holly rolls a 7 in the end, the very end, when she's down with all of the people that were taken by all the other kids.
I did not notice that.
She rolls.
Did she?
She rolls a 7, which is what Will says. Will in season 1 rolls a 7 and says, and then the Demogorgon takes me or something.
Demogorgon.
Like that. The Demogorgon it got me.
It was a 7.
It was
Mike
a 7.
What?
Yeah.
It was a 7. The Demogorgon. It got me.
So that, to me, when I was first watching it, to me was confirmation of they're going to do some sort of spinoff. You know, we know that technically the Demogorgons, the Demodogs, and the Demobats, well, we don't necessarily know about the Demobats, but they're all still in the Abyss didn't go anywhere. Just the bridge between the two worlds went.
What if the Demodogs are friendly? Because they make that noise when... what if they're actually friendly and they were just enslaved? And we get one of those, the I Am Groot specials for the MCU, but we get those for the Demodogs. I bet you Netflix can take that idea. Watch.
Oh my God, please.
It'll go crazy with the kids.
Yeah.
I bet.
I also, God, I don't like that Mike putting away the binders also didn't do what it should have done to me in the end. It's like, all right. Mainly because, again, I'm just kind of pissed off at this point. So I don't care. Put the fucking binders away. I don't want to see him anymore. But also him typing in his room. And something that is interesting is what Mike looks a lot like Ted.
I was about to say that. That's what I was about to say. It looks like Ted Wheeler typing.
Yeah. And then
haircut and all.
Nancy looks like Karen. So I don't know. And also he has this emotional scene with Hopper on the bench where Hopper's telling him, you have 2 paths. You can either stay in this town and basically figure out why and blame yourself for what happened to 11.
Yeah, it's about blame.
Yeah. He's like, or you can basically move on with your life and, you know. And then it kind of just seems like Mike was like, I'm going to stay in this town and figure out like what happened, because he's just writing about all what happened. So it kind of doesn't feel like he chose to move past it and do it. Didn't feel like that to me. He's just in a room looking like his dad, writing with the painting that is completely undiscussed and not ever finalized in the story. So
yeah, that's bad. I took that conversation, the speech, especially on the second viewing, as a conversation mainly about blame and Mike blaming himself for not coming up with a more realistic plan that maybe could have made it so that 11 would have chosen to stay. And Hopper telling Mike about the 2 options where one of them, which Hopper's been down before, you blame yourself. And I don't remember everything else he says, but I think he's referencing how he felt with Sarah
Yeah,
all those
for
years.
sure.
Or, yes, moving on and living the best life you possibly can. And then I think he says, I think you know what Elle would have wanted you to do. Now, I agree. I think Mike, him being a storyteller as the dungeon master, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Him becoming a storyteller later. But it is weird. I agree. He looks like Ted. I could see a future in which he is Ted in the future, and he's just thinking about how he should have kissed Will, and he's on his armchair. I don't know, but I could see a scenario in which it seems like him and Nancy are both going that direction, which is just weird.
It's weird.
Even Steve, honestly,
I don't like what they did with Steve. Okay, this is this is maybe a hot take because I saw a lot of people on the internet saying that they liked that Steve's this baseball coach and has more kids and that he's taking care of and whatever. I hate it. I feel like it completely disregards Steve's growth.
I agree because it makes him seem, even the sex ed teacher commentary that Robin gives, it makes it seem like you're just keeping him in the same spot he's been in and not progressing that character in the future. I still love Steve. But the fact that it's been 18 months, and I'm not saying he needs to have found his person, because canonically he's what, 20, he'd be 22, 23, something in that ballpark. He wouldn't have finished college yet because Nancy dropped out and Jonathan's still in school. Let's say 2021, right? Let's just say that. I'm not expecting him to have found his wife and have settled down with his 6 little nuggets that he wants. But it is weird that all that time later, he's a sex ed teacher. He's kind of the same person. He hasn't changed. Yes, he's coaching baseball, but he's still talking about all these different girls he's been going on. I think she might be the one. Are you guys? I know he's joking, but that's the whole point. What I'm saying is, like, it feels like they aren't progressing his character really at all. I wasn't a big fan of that personally.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with that. And Steve's one of my favorite characters. So
I love Steve. I'll never get on the Steve hate train that
oh no,
some fans are on.
Steve's the best.
I love Steve. I really do.
Yeah, no, there are hours worth of podcasts that we could make about the issues in just the finale, let alone the entire series now, because you look back and there are just so many plot holes, so many issues. And it's really unfortunate because, again, of how many people just loved this show. And I don't understand why people have such a hard time wrapping up a show that is so loved by an audience. You think about, obviously, we talked a little bit about Game of Thrones. Same thing happened with Game of Thrones. You know, I said that this feels worse to me, and it does. Doesn't take away the fact that that felt like a massive slap in the face. But you have all these shows that are over 10 years plus that are so loved by people, and then somehow the writing just goes to shit. And I don't know if it's because and this is something I said to you before we even watched anything. And I said to you I was worried that we were going to get Game of Thrones. And I said that because I think, in my opinion, what happens with a lot of writers is Game of Thrones is separate, but what happens with a lot of writers, I think, is they have these TV series that they make and they end up blowing up. They didn't expect it to do this well, and now they're kind of writing as they go. You know, the Duffers said that they knew what was going to happen.
Lies. That is such a lie.
They did not. And they're coming up with things as they go. And then they don't remember things that they did. They don't know how to wrap it up. Part of the reason I'll talk a little bit about Harry Potter, but part of the reason that Harry Potter is so good, not that there's not plot holes, because plot holes are just going to happen when you have a really long series,
They will.
but phenomenal. Okay. Harry Potter has, in my opinion, one of the best endings to a very long series.
Books or movies?
Books.
Okay.
That you can have. Movies too.
The movies are, yeah.
The movies
There's
are
some
good.
issues, but it's
There's some
nowhere
issues.
nowhere near the level of Stranger Things.
But J.K. Rowling knew what she was going to do ending wise, I think, after she wrote the first book. So you're writing it with a dedicated end in mind. And I think that's where a lot of these shows go missing, is that they just kind of write the season as they go and maybe have some sort of an idea of how they want to end it. This to me doesn't even feel like that. This to me genuinely feels like the Duffer Brothers didn't know how to end it, and they were like, maybe this, and that's what it feels like we got. And I am just very disappointed, to put it
lightly.
To put it lightly, I'm very
put it
disappointed.
lightly, yeah. You know, I would say this. The Duffer Brothers, and something that I think, I'm curious if not just the Duffers, but directors and studio heads, I'm wondering if they'll ever come around to this idea. I've seen this discussed online in a lot of different scenarios when something is poorly received. I think people would appreciate you a lot more and maybe give you some more grace, or even give you a chance in the future, because I think they've burned a lot of bridges to where a lot of fans won't support their future work now.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm one of those fans. I will likely check it out, but am I going to make 450 videos about the Stranger Things live action spinoff? Probably not.
Yeah.
Because I've been burned. And people would appreciate it, I think, if they came in these interviews and instead of BSing their way through them, acknowledged we messed up.
Right.
And don't try to spin it like you knew the end the entire time, or you knew everything, you had everything planned out. That's their own words. They keep insisting. I believe this. This is my opinion. This is purely speculation. I believe they may have had that last scene planned. Just that. Nothing else. The scene of them putting the books up and walking up the stairs and Mike closing the door. I do believe that. Not Holly and her friends being there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that was originally included, but I think they had that idea. That I believe. I think they didn't have the majority of the rest of what came in between planned. I think they made it up as they went along. Maybe they had some ideas like the upside down being a wormhole, although that's questionable because the walls never appear earlier. And there's a lot of plot holes with the upside down, the frozen in time inconsistencies where I rewatched it just to make sure, like the end of season 2, the snowball dance and all the decorations are in the upside down as the mind flayer is peering down, which contradicts the idea that it's frozen in time. But the point is, we don't need to get into all that because ultimately, like you said, and I've talked about in my videos recently, there are hundreds of plot holes, unanswered questions, inconsistencies, and disregarded plot points. All of those combined make up hundreds, and we don't have time. We would be talking forever. The point is, people would appreciate it a lot more, I think, if they came out and just were real, because we're not stupid. Some audience members believe them. Not the majority. Again, there are some who buy it. I think a lot of people with any semblance of ability to think critically and any semblance of media literacy understand, at least to some degree, what happened here. And I wish they would just come out and just say that. Just say it.
Right.
Don't make up BS excuses for everything that's been going on with all of these plot holes. The Demogorgon example, there's so many examples. The military example where they said, well, 18 months passed and they can't explore the upside down anymore. They can't explore that other realm and the girl they were hunting is gone. So they just packed up and left. I guess. You wrote it. It's your thing. Just acknowledge we didn't think of that.
Yeah.
We didn't think of that. We're sorry we let you guys down. Simple. You know how much kinder fans would be in response if that was the case? Ultimately, I think my closing thought on all this is there's been a lot of pushback about criticizing all of these things. And I think that I said this on a story and I sent it in my bulletin board on TikTok. If you notice things like this and you don't criticize the media you love when you notice these types of issues, this type of lazy writing, all you're doing is reinforcing studios, directors, showrunners, producers. You're reinforcing them believing they can create mediocre content instead of art. Filmmaking is an art. And as long as it doesn't hurt their bottom line, that's what you're doing. If you don't point out these issues that are issues, it's not nitpicks, they're objective plot holes. It's not opinions. We haven't even talked really a lot about like personal dislikes. And there are many. We talked about objective issues that are issues in the art of filmmaking. And I just think that it's really important to be able to give earned criticism when it exists, when it should be talked about. I think not discussing it is not the right move in the long term. I think it'll damage the art of filmmaking, movies, shows. It'll lower the standards and allow for more things like this to happen. More Game of Thrones season 8.
Yeah.
More of that. So
no, I mean, I agree. And I think that, like I said to you, I was watching it in the theater and I wanted to like it so bad that I was trying to overlook these issues that I was seeing that I just didn't want to acknowledge because I knew that it was going to ruin my viewership experience. But you have to acknowledge them. And they happen not just with Stranger Things. Gonna shout out Star Wars here because I'm a big Star Wars fan. Star Wars is maybe the worst at doing it. Love Marvel too. Marvel's been really bad about it. These are happening a lot. And to your point, it is important to talk about it because people will always continue to watch these franchises. They will always continue to watch Star Wars. They'll always continue to watch Marvel. Stranger Things also probably has a very significant portion of their audience that will always continue to watch whatever spinoffs they do. And I am all here for growth. And so criticism is actually a good thing. If you didn't like it and there are genuine, like you're saying, objective issues, it's not just, oh, I didn't really enjoy it. No, these are objective issues within the writing and within the storytelling. If you give that criticism and you have studios and writers that listen to it, it will help prevent certain things like this in the future so that you're not always getting bad writing, plot holes, and bad endings to shows. So
they're somewhere.
They're somewhere.
Or you brought up Star Wars, the Maz Kanata, I forget her name, from Force Awakens, the Yoda looking person, where she says, "A good question for another time." That's literally that sums up the finale.
Yeah.
And I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
It was well put.
Well, that I think ends our podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow us on our TikTok and all of our various social media accounts. And this will probably not be the last time that you hear us talk about Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah, there's more to discuss.
And the finale. There's lots to discuss, but we will continue to talk about various different film, television. I'm sure we'll get into some Star Wars at some point.
Yeah.
We'll get into some Marvel at some point. So we'll have a lot coming out. So stay tuned. And
that's it.
Yeah.
I think.
Thanks again.